The flux capacitor flickers out, and the DeLorean screams into the year 2105. Marty braces for a sky full of flying cars and neon highways. But as the gull-wing door hisses open, he steps into a heavy, humid silence. The hill valley he left behind has vanished. In its place is a graveyard of rusted steel, with skyscraper skeletons jutting out of a vast, murky lagoon like jagged teeth. The historic center of town is unrecognizable. The iconic clock tower stands alone, a lonely island rotting in the rising tide. Earth didn't experience a normal cycle of historical progress. Decades of unchecked rising temperatures melted the polar ice caps, and the resulting deluge submerged human civilization. To survive, Marty pushes the DeLorean out of the mid-latitudes. The entire equator has become a permanent dead zone, defined by lethal wet bulb temperatures, where human sweat can no longer evaporate to cool the body. He aims for the only remaining sanctuary, the North. He finds a reinforced shack perched on a rocky, barren peak in Greenland. Just decades prior, this exact spot sat beneath 3 miles of solid ice. Inside, the heat is still oppressive. Doc Brown sits hunched over a chaotic, jury-rigged assembly of copper pipes and ice water fans, his clothes soaked in sweat, desperately trying to keep the ambient temperature survivable. Doc looks up, his eyes wide with a mix of terror and grief. He warns Marty that the massive thermal energy is destabilizing more than just the climate. The heat is so intense, it is degrading the sensors and stable parameters of time-space itself. The continuum is literally boiling. Doc throws a map onto the table, pointing to the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation, or AMOC. This is the planet's essential ocean conveyor belt, responsible for distributing heat from the equator to the poles. But the engine broke. To function, the AMOC relies on the polar ocean's freezing, which leaves behind dense, sinking saltwater. When the sea ice stopped forming, that heavy brine vanished. With the conveyor belt jammed, the heat had nowhere to go. It began to pool aggressively around the middle of the planet. Triggering this oceanic heart attack crippled Earth's ability to regulate its own climate. The tropics baked into an uninhabitable furnace, while the rest of the globe rapidly absorbed the unrelenting trapped heat. The second domino fell on land. As the world's permafrost thawed, it began to actively exhale trapped ancient gases. Millennia of frozen biological matter, from ancient mosses to woolly mammoths, were suddenly exposed to blistering surface temperatures and began to rapidly rot. That widespread decay released massive plumes of methane directly into the atmosphere, a greenhouse gas drastically more potent at trapping heat than carbon dioxide. Underneath the water, the same process occurred. As oceans warmed, submerged deposits of frozen methane, known as clathrates, aggressively erupted from the seafloor. The simultaneous release of terrestrial and oceanic methane ignited a fierce feedback loop. Earth was actively warming itself, pushing global temperatures beyond human intervention. With the atmosphere supercharged, the massive continental ice sheets of Greenland and Antarctica surrendered to the warming seas. The immense volume of that frozen water entering the ocean caused global sea levels to rise by nearly 73 meters, or 240 feet. The rising water swallowed the world's most populated coastal cities and permanently submerged essential agricultural plains across the globe. This surge was the final blow. Habitable land vanished beneath 240 feet of salt water, erasing the map of civilization. Standing in the sweltering heat, Marty stares out over the brown, treeless horizon, asking Doc if this apocalyptic destiny is already locked in. Doc shakes his head. He explains that this specific, ruined timeline was deliberately manufactured by decisions made back in the 20th and 21st centuries. Society knowingly traded long-term atmospheric stability for short-term fossil-fueled convenience. The drowning of the world is the direct, man-made penalty for decades of inaction, but the window to fix it is closing. Doc recalibrates the DeLorean for a mission of global intervention, targeting 1989. Marty must now act as the ultimate whistleblower for the entire planet. He loads the cockpit with a critical data payload, exact engineering blueprints for advanced carbon sequestration, and the hard numerical proof that society must immediately pivot to zero-carbon energy. Marty punches the accelerator. The engine roars, the speedometer hits 88 miles per hour, and the DeLorean tears through the humid, apocalyptic haze in a massive flash of blue electricity. He leaves behind a drowned world, hoping to save it. But the real question remains, can one warning from the past convince our present-day world to change its course before the ice begins to weep?